So the theme for this talk is relationships as a spiritual practice, or the benefit of relationships, the power of relationships in order to grow, to deepen our spiritual nature, our relationship to the sacred. And I'd like to start off with a little question for all of us. If we think about a moment in the past that felt very important to us, that felt very meaningful, very fulfilling, or very purposeful, is there a memory that comes up of a time in our past where we felt, wow, like that moment, that experience, that was really a key moment in my life? Just taking a moment to feel into that question. And in this memory that may come up, are you alone, or are you with someone? Or are you connected to something or some place? And you're welcome to write in the chat if you like your answer. So this is a question that was a part of a study, social psychology. And the results from that study shows that actually most of our most significant moments in life are relational. In the sense that, whether it's a graduation party, whether it's a birthday, whether it's a wedding, whether it's some kind of threshold or some kind of moment that allowed us to grow into a new phase in life. Like if I think of myself, the first moment that comes is my bar mitzvah. I was brought up as a Jew, and bar mitzvah at 13 years old is a celebration that I got to learn Hebrew. I got to read the Torah, read the Bible, and all my friends and all my family were there. And so there's a sense of connectedness to the community and a recognition of the community of my age and my coming into adulthood. That's the ritual. And there is something significant about that rite of passage, about that age going further. And yeah, so all of the memories that you've all written are with someone, right? Like we're most impacted. Some of the ways in which we feel most alive and most intensely connected to life is through others. And we, in our last Dharma gathering, we explored as well the theme of relationship. And we, some of us shared that actually it's not just others as humans, but it's also others like animals. Some of us, a relationship with animals. There are some cat lovers. Some people love cats more than they love humans, I know a few people like that. And some other people, actually, we love trees. We love nature. We can love, spend times in our fields, in forests, in the mountains. I'm Swiss, so, mountains are very dear for me. And I know some of you are in Turkey, maybe the sea, it's like just going into the sea. There's a sense of freshness and connection. And so what's the relationship between the sense of meaningfulness, a sense of fulfillment, and spirituality? Well, the way in which I'd like to propose the theme of spirituality, or the concept of spirituality, is an experience that allows us to transcend. It's an experience, it's a practice that allows us to go beyond where we are in this moment. So there's an aspect of unknown, because we're emerging to something new. And there's also something about growing, something about expanding, something about opening. And I will leave that genuinely quite wide, because something spiritual or something sacred for each of us will probably be quite different. You know, like I'm super weird. You know, for me to have this beard and this mohawk and this like that's super spiritual. But for some people, that's actually kind of disrespectful. You know, like I'm in Switzerland and I'm working with lawyers sometimes, and it just looks completely off the average of what a normal person or a functional person would look like. So I really invite us, you know, over the course of this session, but also in general, to actually to tailor, to craft our own definition and our own pathway of what is spiritual, what is sacred. And so in this theme of relationships, I will focus mostly on human relationships. Although, of course, you know, there are relationships to many things. I would argue that in the Buddhist tradition, which is one of the main foundations for our conceptual frameworks, our understanding of meditation practice in neurosystemics, is that there are, I'd say, at least two main benefits of relationships. There are two ways in which we can grow as spiritual beings through our relationships. And that our relationships are actually not just a way for us to grow, but they are themselves, like the way in which we are with others is in and of itself a way of being spiritual. And the first one has a lot of evidence in the Buddhist tradition itself, and it's the whole field of good friends. In Pali, which is the closest language that was spoken 2,600 years ago in India, we use the term Kalyana Mita, which technically means good or noble or deep friendship. So what does that mean? What is a good friend? What qualities would that person have? How many good friends do we have in our lives? Robin Dunbar, who's an experimental psychologist, but he's also an anthropologist and also an evolutionary biologist in Oxford. He's done a lot of work on friendship. And in his last book, he talks about just the average number of good friends that we are able to have in terms of how much time it takes and the resources necessary to nourish and maintain them for a functional life. And of course, you know, these are big generalizations, and he's taking massive amounts of data over thousands of years. But the way in which he describes it is that up in our lives, we can have roundabout up to like 15 friendships, 15 different types of relationships that we would nourish on a daily basis. And that those 15 friendships, and then a third of those, or about 4 or 5, would be even more intense, and about 1 or 2, usually our intimate partner, and if we're a child, maybe our parents, are the ones that we most rely on. So there's a sense of expansion. So we have 1 or 2 people that are extremely close, 4 or 5 in the wider circle, and then 15 remaining in our intimate circle. And evolutionarily, this is a process which has evolved over hundreds of thousands of millions of years as we've developed a social capacity as mammals. Our nervous system has been affected. And we could also say that our nervous system has affected the way in which we come into relationships. So it's a two-way process. And one particular aspect I'd like to linger on for a moment is the aspect of calm, the aspect of grounding, the aspect of ease that can be nourished and strengthened through our relationships. And calm is one of the two wings in the Buddhist tradition. So we have two wings of a bird in order to fly and transcend and go beyond this land here. And the first one is the wing of calm. And evolutionarily, the story is that when we are with our tribe, and maybe there's a little bit of that experience right now for some of us, we feel more relaxed. We're able to feel a little bit more at ease. It's like we don't feel so agitated. Maybe if we're alone in our house, then, it feels like we need to do something in order to feel okay. But maybe actually just being together this evening, or when we go out, or when we practice something or do something with friends, we don't need to do much. We can be more. And so just the quality of presence, the quality of having other people in our sight, whether it's actually physically or through Zoom, there is a sense of relaxation, a sense of safety. Actually, we talk about in the polyvagal theory, we talk about a sense of feeling like when our sense of hypervigilance, is the sense of worry, whether we need to attend to our environment in order to feel safe, is reduced, because we know that we're not the only ones worrying for our safety. It's like we are with our friends. And so if something happens, then everybody will be able to respond. Or maybe some people have more of a responsibility to respond, like it used to be in the tribes, when a few people would stay up during the night and there would be rotations. And so technically, we can talk about a reduction in our bioenergetic needs for hypervigilance. And that's one of the reasons why the Buddha put a huge amount of emphasis on community and friendship. It's because actually to have good friends around and to be in a space where we are sharing this time together, it allows us to relax. It allows us to feel more ease and more settled most of the time. Because we know that with good friends, even with the best friends, we get into rows and disagreements and conflicts. And I would be surprised if this was not the case even for anyone here. And so in a way, instead of having to focus on our breath, for like half an hour or a day or a month, actually, maybe there's just the quality of being in good company, being with people we trust, people we love, people we care for, people that in retrospect also care for us. That allows us to immediately sink into a different space. And that quality of calm, that quality of grounding is essential for us to come to discover new spaces, to come to transform, to transcend into a new state of consciousness, into a new connection with ourselves and to life and to the sacred. And in terms of health, if we talk about health as a measurement of health, which is stress, we also know, and there's like unequivocal evidence to show today, that being in the company of others and good friends is the most potent factor for cardiovascular health, for all sorts of physiological diseases, for mental health as well, in terms of depression and anxiety. So good friends matter. They really matter in order for us to feel at ease and in ourselves and grounded. And the second aspect I'd like to touch on is the aspect of insight. And so the two wings of the bird in the Buddhist tradition is calm and insight, samatha and vipassana, so this sense of really grounding and ease and relaxation. And then the sense of exploration and investigation, the sense of really trying to understand, and so wisdom really needs both of those wings in order to grow and deepen and embody. And there are some things that you just cannot find out about yourself by yourself. We're currently writing a book with my wife on relational dharma. So this is, the way in which we can deepen our spiritual practice and deepen our connection to the sacred inside ourselves and in the world in relationship, and in an intimate relationship, but also in friendships. And so we've been discussing, many times, what is it? Why is it that, we consider our relationship so sacred? What is it that helps us become, that allows us to deepen our capacity for meaning and for purpose and for brightness in our lives together? And the best thing I've come up with, there are a number, but the best thing I've come up with, I just leave you with the most exciting part, which you'll have to read the book in order to get more details, is to be free from fixed views. Has it ever happened to you that, you have an opinion and you're discussing, you're thinking about an opinion, and then you're just going around in your head. It's like, no, I think this, and no, and this is wrong, and this is that, and this should be this way, and it should be that way. And we can go on like this for hours, right? Sometimes days or weeks or years even about things. And a lot of the time, it's quite difficult actually to think differently or to have a new way of connecting to something in order for us to start to feel better or to feel more relaxed. And in psychology, we talk about rumination, which is one of the major factors, one of the major contributions for depression. And being with others is nearly a necessary factor for what we call perspective seeking. So I have my opinion, and if I'm with you, you're going to have your opinion, and maybe your opinion is different. In fact, it's often going to be different. And the fact that your opinion is different, you think differently about something, if I'm open-minded enough, and this is a big if, because sometimes when we're angry or we're frustrated or we're just, really tired, we're not open-minded, we're not open-hearted. But if there's enough calm, there's enough ease and groundedness and trust and love in the relationship, then there can be this open-mindedness. And then we can start to shift how we see the world, how we see ourselves, how we think about ourselves. And so it opens up a whole new possibility. And that's just something you cannot do alone. Or maybe you can, but most easily and most spontaneously and naturally, you can really allow for that broader diversity of views and have other people's perspectives and take in different opinions. And just that broadening in and of itself, even though their opinion might not be better than yours. In fact, of course, we're so narcissistic, especially me. It's like our opinion is always better than the others. But the fact that we know that there's another opinion, the fact that we know that somebody else might think different, and that actually people can think differently than you. I mean, I find that it really helps me relax. Because even if I think I'm the best and it's the best opinion, and of course I'm right, it's like, then, I speak about something with my wife and she feels different. It's like, wow, maybe it doesn't have to be just like this. Maybe it could be a bit different, and that opens a possibility. It opens things up just a bit. So it relaxes our fixed views. And fixed views, my friends, like this is the deepest and the most entrenched factor for our suffering, according to the Buddhist tradition. The fact that we would see things and that we're not able to see how things change or see differently at different times. We don't have this malleability of perception. We can't see things as they shift, but we stay stuck. That stuckness, that's a real source of suffering. And so, of course, when we're in a relationship, it's a lot of work because we always have to start seeing things from their perspective. It's like, oh, you think like this, like that. Well, actually, what is right? And it's like, it's a lot of work. And that's one of the pitfalls in our practice in relationships. So there are some pitfalls to be in relationship with others. It can be very time consuming, can be very energetically consuming. So, it's choosing our friends wisely. Who do we spend time with? Who do we trust? Who do we open up to? I remember I was leading a group recently, and one of the people saying how they were sharing something very, very, very tender in their daily life. And the person who was listening really didn't feel into what they were saying at all. And they felt so devalued. They felt already, they opened up and felt vulnerable. They felt fragile. And then they felt rejected and diminished. And so it's not just about friends, it's about good friends and wise friends. Who do we spend time with, and how much energy do we decide to put? So I just invite us to reflect on for a few moments before we shift gears into more of a discussion space. Who are our friends? What does it take for someone to be a real good friend for us? How can we support a sense of sacredness in the relationships that we have around us? Really cherish them. And I'll end with just a last quote from the Buddha in relationship to that question, where he says, "It is better to be a lone elephant than to be in bad company, in the company of a bad, in the bad company of the herd, a harmful herd." And so when we see, these archetypic forms of the lone meditator, the person who's alone under the tree and like there's nobody around, that's actually kind of that's important to take time alone, but it's kind of if you can have friends, if you can nourish good friendships, actually, it's much deeper, much stronger, much more grounding and loving and supportive. And I've had to learn that a hard way. Yeah. So let's open it up a bit. I'm wondering, how are you doing in this space?